Hello, listeners and viewers, to the next episode of the Welcome to Perth podcast. Today I have with me Dave Heaton, who's a hospitality giant of Western Australia, has just been awarded legend status at the AHA Awards, and this crazy man's going over east and expanding his empire over there. So how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Pleased to meet you again.
So, I mean, you've got so many venues. But I'll reel a few of them off. I'm sure I'm going to forget a few. But Fly Club, you've brought that here. You've got one open in Sydney. You've got one in Melbourne that's going to be opening later in the year. Love that business, by the way. So well done for that one. We're here underneath this amazing tree at Print Hall. So you've got this whole business. You took over that about a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah, just over a year ago.
Yep. And then you've also got, we'll get the microphone a little bit, yeah.
Sorry.
And you've also got Magnet House. You've also got the two businesses that are connected to that one. So you've got the bowling alley down there behind that one. Amplifier. And you've also got Edison.
Yes.
Yeah, which is sort of like a late night bar down below. And then you've also got Metro's Freo, which has just had a renovation.
Yes.
Big renovation.
Yes, really good.
Epic. Yeah. And so that's now open?
Yeah, it's been open for the last, I think, 8 weeks now, so it's trading really well and it's been well received.
Awesome. And then you've also got the Breakwater.
Breakwater,
yeah,
yes.
You've also got the Lookout in
Correct.
Scarborough.
You're doing well.
I'm a Scarborough man, so I know that strip. And then you've got Loop in Joondalup. So you've taken over, it was the old arcade.
Arcade, yeah.
Yeah. Did you operate that one or you?
Briefly,
but
the idea was to take it over, refit it and do something amazing there.
Awesome. And then have I missed anything else out?
Probably, but I can't. I can't think of what you've missed.
So we're obviously on the rooftop here. Just this tree. So you were just telling me off camera. It 12 months ago you had the idea, or you paid for it 12 months ago, and it's only just got installed.
Yeah, well, it's been interesting with transportation over the last 12 months. We thought we'd just plonk a tree up here. It'll look really great. A few engineers later, a couple of $100,000 worth of engineering work to get it up here. It just blew out.
Yeah.
It blew out, but it's worth it. It's really good.
It looks awesome. Very, very Instagrammable. And then give me a bit of a rundown on the on Flight Club. So that was a business that initially started over in the UK. So my guess is you were over there doing a bit of research / having a few beers, and you walked into this business and went, this is a cracking venue. This would be good in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best thing about hospitality is the type of research that you actually do when you're away, and we're always looking for great ideas. And we're just strolling through Shoreditch one day with my wife and my stepdaughter, and she just said, let's go and have a look at this darts bar. So anyway, I walked in there, got about 5 metres in. It was 2 o'clock on a Saturday. I remember it vividly.
Yeah.
There was a DJ, the place was pumping, everyone was jumping up and down and cheering, and I knew at that moment we had to have it.
Yeah, well done. And so how long ago was that until Flight Club in Perth on Murray Street opened?
It was about 2017 I first saw it. We got in contact, we tried to get in contact with the operator's Red Engine in London, but they didn't really want to talk to us for 2 years. So in that time, we'd actually reverse engineered all the tech, and we had our own version of Flight Club, which we were going to call the Boardroom.
Yep.
And just as we were about to launch that, out of the blue, they gave us a call and said, come over and talk to us. So we did, and that was about 2019. So we went over there, spent 5 days with them, and they'd done all the hard work, and we thought, you know what,
Yep.
we'll just go with you guys.
The tech's there. It's been ironed out. All the kinks have been ironed out.
Kinks,
So I presume, you got to pay them some sort of fee, but for that fee that goes with it, you also get all that branding and everything that comes with it.
Absolutely. I mean, that fee is probably the best money I spent.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of support with marketing, all the tech side, obviously. We're also part of a global brand, so we're recognised, especially launching in Sydney, where that was kind of like the surrogate Australian launch, because unfortunately...
We're a bit forgotten here, aren't we?
We get a bit forgotten in Perth. So, all those things sort of play into it. And you've also got a group of peers where you can sort of exchange ideas. It's not very often, that you can, share ideas with other hospitality owners and be completely transparent. A lot of the times you're in a bit of competition with them, and, they don't really want to tell you everything, but these guys, it's just like looking under the hood of a, an international business and seeing the way they do things.
Yeah, awesome. So you're already looking to expand over. Well, and you're in Sydney, but Melbourne's going to open up. Does that mean, let's say Melbourne does well? Does that mean other cities in Oz will open too?
Yeah, we're committed to doing 16 across Australia. So that was always awesome. The plan. So we did a bit of demographic studies. We also knew that the product was really good, and we took a bit of a leap of faith, in Perth. And Perth's outperformed, a lot of the UK sites. So it's interesting that I think at one stage Perth was like third in the world. So it's very interesting that no one wanted to know about Perth, and then all of a sudden we're up there with, the world's best. And I guess Perth was a bit fortuitous for us because of COVID, we were the only ones open. So they were putting a lot of pressure on us to open on the East Coast first. But then, of course, COVID came along and Perth was the only place available.
So it was actually
to do
open.
Anything.
Yeah.
And it's just been a godsend. It's been fantastic to have it, in your backyard, and also to be so well received by people in Perth. It's just been amazing.
Well, there's not many other bars that I can say in the city that I've gone to at 11 a.m. when it opens with a group of 25 mates on a bucks party to go, yep, we need to get there at this time, and then you've got everyone engaged for those 2 hours, and then onto the next place. But and we walked in and the place was booked out. It was absolutely killing it. So well done, and it must be nice to be able to get your hands around it and see it in person. So you've got a really good understanding of that business model to then be able to roll it out further. So well done, mate.
Yep.
And then, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you see businesses or locations that you really like that, and you but they're not performing as well. And then you sort of wait for them to go on sale, and then you will purchase them and then rebrand them and do what you feel would be right to make that location special and unique.
Yeah, well, we're sort of like turned into turnaround specialists almost. And I think our first turnaround was the Lookout or Matisse. And I remember, going through that site, and everybody from Perth was there, all the usual suspects, and they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And they all came to the conclusion it was too big. And we had a really good idea of what to do with it. We knew how to fill that space. We thought, how about put some bowling in there? So instead of having, pool tables and dartboards in a traditional pub, let's put some bowling in there.
Yeah.
And again, that's really created a big point of difference for us. It also gives us a really nice steady stream of revenue and trade during the days, which are not normally surrounded by, or not usually surrounded by, lunch and dinner and after dinner trades. So that was probably our first foray into doing something a little bit different and bringing something that people hadn't seen to hospitality.
Was that so that was the first activity that was in one of your venues? Yeah.
But we're very careful to position that venue and most of our venues, and even Flight Club, as a bar first and the experience second. We did want to be seen as, in the Lookout situation, of competing with an AMF or something like that. We really wanted people to augment that, typical F&B hospitality experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Breakwater, I remember you had some shuffleboards in there, because I know that's huge in the UK. Are you still doing shuffleboards, or are you? Yep. And how's that been received?
Yeah, shuffleboards are really great. It's kind of like that icebreaker activity. So the whole idea around all these activities is basically getting people together and having icebreaker activities. So you could get together with a group of strangers on a dartboard, and within half an hour you're all slapping each other on the back. And that was kind of like the whole idea. And I guess, we also saw the trend of, younger people in particular getting more healthy and drinking less. And we thought, how can we bring an activity where people can get together that's not always surrounded by how many litres we can get them to drink,
Yeah, the 18 to 25-year-old demographic is a bit different to my generation and your generation.
They go to the gym on a Friday night.
And then they go running early morning on a Sunday at 6 a.m.
It's crazy.
Oh, dear me. But it's good to see you're adapting, and a lot of operators haven't adapted. And if you don't adapt, you die, don't you?
Well, that's it. And we always look at the question of not what's going to change in the next 10 years. It's basically what isn't going to change. and we can bet on what's not going to change. And the thing that we see that's not going to change, regardless of AI, super robots taking over the world, and all of that, is people are still going to want to get together and meet up
and connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and if you can have an activity, then that's definitely a great way to draw in. And then, so how did the Print Hall behemoth come along? Because this is a big place.
Yeah, well, that was we kind of tripped over that one. This was offered up to us, and we always sort of go into these things with the spirit of adventure. And we hadn't done fine dining before, and like our previous conversation, I thought, it's so hard to be in restaurants. It's a very competitive space, but we had the pub element attached to it as well, and we always wanted to have a big tree like this, and that's the only place it could fit. So it's been a really interesting project for us to actually get that fine dining element together, and also, run it as a pub, and it's very approachable. It's not sort of a stodgy venue, so you can actually, finish work in one of these beautiful towers that surrounds us and have a beer at the end of the day, but you can also get your loved ones and your friends and family to come and meet up and have a higher end experience if you wish.
And I mean, I just parked, before this interview at Elizabeth Quay, and gee, that is just changing, the face of the city and also the face of Perth. So as those high rises complete, and office workers and residential and hotel people, that's going to have more foot traffic to that area, and walking up here.
Well, I guess that's what makes places like Flight Club and Print Hall successful, in that the corporate customer, so our corporate guests, I should say. So you get a lot of foot traffic or a lot of patronage from Monday to Thursday. They're the hardest days to fill. Friday and Saturday you always get the party crowd, that's a given. But, to be able to fill, your Monday to Thursday with team building events, get-togethers, corporate catch-ups, really does change the whole complexity of a venue and the profitability as well that goes with it.
Now, I look at you as an expert in hospitality, but and to have so many venues and not just so many venues that are all the same, but so many different personalities, like that's a lot of work. Like, how did you get into hospitality? Did you grow up, as a kid going, I wanted to get into bars and pubs and venues, or did you fall into it? How does that story go of you actually getting into your, into your love?
Yeah.
Love, hate, is it like?
Well, I guess hospitality is just one iteration of my career. Initially, my whole life I wanted to be a pilot in the army, so as a helicopter pilot, and I got recruited and passed the test, and then got discharged 2 weeks later. I dislocated my shoulder, so I had a medical discharge, and I was kind of lost at what I wanted to do. So anyway, just in the spirit of adventure, I called up a few places, and next minute I'm selling mobile phones. And the last thing I wanted to do was be a salesperson, but once I understood what it really meant, it meant listening to people and providing them with solutions. And so that really sort of grounded the bedrock for hospitality, in that, I'll sit in a venue just at a table on my own, just watching people's faces, just seeing how they react to certain elements of everything we do. And hospitality, I don't think you can be an expert in hospitality. I think you need to study it constantly, because staying relevant, trends change all the time. So staying relevant is probably the hardest thing. So finding that, I guess, crystallization of all your opinions in your mind is probably the hardest thing you need to do. You've got to always have an inquiring mind. So, that's how I feel, and that's how we approach it. So we always approach hospitality with a spirit of adventure.
Yeah.
We always look for, something that actually makes us really stand out in one way or another, whether it be darts, whether it be bowling. We've got a few other concepts that we're launching in Australia, which are just crazy, really good.
Any ones we can hear about yet, or it's still on the hush hush?
What have I signed?
What NDI?
We're bringing Dave & Buster's, which is basically it's an American sports bar fused to a time zone, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, cool.
So really sort of family entertainment kind of complex, more sort of located out of the CBD into the suburbs and the outer rims.
Yep.
To try and address that family and after work kind of market for, the northern, southern suburbs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
That's one we're really interested in, because we don't want to compete with ourselves. We don't want to put a flight club next to, some other bar that's experiential next to
Yeah.
it, because
Rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, you're fighting for the same customer. But so we're bringing that to Australia. We've got a couple of other ones which are going to blow people's minds, but I haven't finalised.
Yep. I mean, you can't have anyone stealing your ideas, so keep them to yourself.
Well, yeah, they can steal it, but these are such a high-end bar that it'll be hard to replicate.
Love it. I'm excited. You've got me very intrigued. Yeah. So, okay, you mentioned you fortuitously get into selling phones. So did you start a company doing that, or were you a salesperson? How did?
Yeah, I ended up starting a company. I ended up with 16 mobile phone shops across WA.
Oh, wow.
And I exited that business just before the crash, I think it was, in 2008.
Good timing.
Yeah, great timing. It was fantastic. And I was pretty much retired for 2.5 years. I was training, I was riding 26 Ks a day. I was in the best time of my life.
As in cycling? Cycling, yeah.
And then one of my key employees came back and said, Dave, we've got to do something. And I went, okay, Michael, what are we going to do? We're going to do something in retail. He goes, yes. So I said, okay, well, I'll do 2 days a week.
Yeah.
You do the rest. You can cry on my shoulder for 2 days a week, but off you go. And long story short, there was nothing really out there that was worth us investing our time in. And in a fit of frustration, the person showing us around said, oh, we've got a nightclub. And I went, okay, well, I had no intention of buying a nightclub.
Love it.
But I always take a meeting.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to explore all the things I thought that a nightclub was.
Yeah.
And have a conversation.
Staying curious, I like it.
Staying curious and seeing it. And I remember leaving that meeting and I turned to Michael and I said, how am I going to tell my wife I'm buying a fucking nightclub? Oh, you got to take that little thing out.
I love it. That is a tough one to get over the line.
That's a tough one to get over the line. Anyway, after my divorce, I bought another one.
True story?
True story.
So what nightclub, was that Capital?
No, that was Metropolis.
Metro's Freo.
Yeah, and what sort of sucked me into that was they had the night key system, the scanning system.
Yep.
Which they were using as primarily a security system.
Yeah.
And I saw it as data.
Yeah.
Because I came from mobile phones, data-rich environment. I thought, well, I know your name.
Data is king.
Yeah, I know who's coming.
Remarket and...
Yeah, I know who's coming in. It's not like we're opening the doors and hoping there's going to be a big line. It's like we could do things. We sent text messages out and we really did probably one of the first people to do direct marketing in the nightclub scene.
And what year was that?
2010-ish.
Oh, nice.
2008, 2009. Something like that.
Okay, so that I would have been just starting to go to Metro's Freo when you just opened that.
Yeah.
And I think you did Capital next, didn't you? And that was my favourite stomping ground in my very early years.
Yeah, well, Capital came along. It's just like, you've got this kind of, we have like what we call a constructive paranoia. Right. So what happens if Metropolis doesn't go well? Well, the best way to save Metropolis is to buy another venue, right? Diversify your risk.
Yep. Buy the venue that could potentially steal all your customers.
Yeah, basically. Corner the market.
Similar size.
Competitions for losers.
Yeah,
right?
Love it.
Monopolies.
So, obviously Metro's Freo did well.
Yep.
That direct marketing did do well, and then was Capital. It definitely was Capital in 2009, 10. Is that when you then bought that one?
I think I bought it maybe 2011. I think it was.
Yeah.
Then.
And so was that publicly for sale, or was that through networks that they knew that you were doing well, and a broker said, hey, do you want to?
I just approached them.
Yeah, love it.
Do you want to sell it? And I said, I'll pay X times, and they were interested. And
was that Tony T and Peter Bell?
Tony T and Peter Bell. And then I put in an offer. I couldn't get the money, so then I gave them some money to hold the offer open. and 12 months later, I finally got the money and I bought it.
Doesn't sound stressful at all.
Everything's stressful.
So you got the deal over the line, and like everything, you don't know with those sort of businesses. Is your time going to be up in a year? And as you said, you got to keep evolving and keep being fluid with what you're offering people. But that looked like it had a great, next 7 years or so. Is that?
Like a good decade. Close to a decade there, and Metropolis, it's had its ups and downs, but primarily I've owned it for 16 years, and there's been 13 good years out of 16 years.
Yeah, you'd definitely take that, especially in the nightclub industry.
It is tough because, we've seen people come and go, there's, and again, it's trying to stay relevant. And, obviously we have two really iconic venues, and that was part of the reason I bought them. I wasn't going to buy anything that, I hadn't heard of or was only around for two years. So that was part of the strategy. And then, just trying to stay relevant all the time, change it up, change your DJs, changing concepts, changing your marketing. You're starting at Facebook, now they're on TikTok. It's like drive you nuts.
It just keeps on going.
Drives you nuts.
And YouTube Shorts, then LinkedIn, and then it's.
I think when we started with Metropolis, Facebook wasn't really much of a thing.
Yeah.
And we were the only ones on TV.
Yeah.
So we had television commercials for Metropolis, and we bought the cheap slots at 11 p.m.
How much did they cost?
$200 a slot, right? So everyone's going, "Oh, you're on telly, you must be
killing it."
$200 a slot, it's all off peak.
I love it. And if they're staying up at 11 o'clock, there's no grandmas up at 11 p.m. So you're marketing to the right people.
We just wanted to give them FOMO.
The marketing world is just changing so quickly.
Marketing does your head.
It's brutal because that seems to be something that just seems to be quickening up. And if you don't stay current with that, within 6 months you can be left behind.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how it's changed, because it used to be about placement, and just eyeballs on your static post and all that. And now it's so content driven. These social media companies have it's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, it's a full addiction. So it's the TikTokification of social media, where you got to draw people in within that 10 seconds. Really you got to draw them in within the first 2 seconds. Otherwise, they're flipping to something else that's funnier.
It's half a second.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then people start to expect that in other areas of their life as well. Because if you're not entertained or engaged, you're moving on to the next thing as well. So that flows through in society in other ways.
Well, attention spans have gone from maybe 20 minutes to about half a second now. You don't get that dopamine hit right now. I'm on to something else.
Oh, dear me. And you and I are not models, so we unfortunately have to use other ways to be able to get people interested.
Speak for yourself, mate.
So then you got capital, and that was going well, because I know you then rebranded it to Magnet House, aka Maggie's, and that's done really good things ever since you did that, and with your LED system and sound system, and your stage setup, it's nearly like you're going to a mini festival. But what was the third business you went into?
Oh, third one. So we're down at Jamie came along, my CEO, and we're having a beer down at Edison one day, and we said, you know what? We're paying rent for 7 days a week, and we've got a business that runs for 1.5 days a week, right? So we had very lumpy cash flow. So we thought, how do we smooth this out? So that's when Matisse came up, went into receivership, and we thought we'll get into taverns. And just coincidentally, I went on a junket with Jack Daniels to Tennessee. And
I love that word, by the way, the junket. It's a cracking term.
It's a great, and a junket it was. And anyway, so I'm in a bus with a lot of strangers. You know how it can be, making polite conversations. It gets a bit draining after about 8 hours. And they said, we're going to dinner. We're going to this fine dining restaurant. And I thought, here we go. I just want to go home to the hotel and watch telly.
Yeah.
Anyway, we end up there. And there's a fine dining. It's called Pinewood Studios. And it's a fine dining restaurant, but it had bowling lanes. And this is where it all started.
So what year is this?
This is, I've had it 6-7 years. Can't remember.
Yeah.
So anyway, the bus of strangers, by the end of it, we're all slapping each other on the back and all that. And I thought, you know what, this vibe, we have to capture this vibe. And at that stage, what we understood about bowling was AMF, these big, 25 lanes, kids everywhere, stale hot dogs and all that kind of vibe. And it was our first foray into what we call boutique bowling. So that's when Matisse came up. And yeah, so Jamie and I were in Matisse, and everybody's looking around going, it's too big, and we had our laser pointers going, we've got enough height in the ceiling, what's the width here, you know? And so the intention was always to put bowling lanes in there.
Yeah, yeah, love it. Very smart. I mean, because there's not many venues that I've been to having a solid Sunday session with mates. And then I've also recommended to go there with my wife and and her family before we got married, and all their kids as well. And I can't think of many venues that can tick both of those boxes, but but that's what the Lookout does.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Like, you know, you get, especially Saturday morning, you get the young kids with families. The afternoon, you get old guys like me having a beer. Then you get the dinner crowd, you know, a bit younger, and then you get the party crowd late at night.
So would you say, because I've had a restaurant, not a successful restaurant at all, and I've had a pub before, and that one did okay, but would you say, I've never bought a nightclub though, so you're the right man to ask this question, because I don't know.
I've got one for sale.
We'll talk about that off camera. Yeah. So, okay, so would you say restaurants the hardest, then nightclubs, then pubs? Pubs, bars. Actually, we'll add a small bar in there as well. So let's rank those four of like that. What's the hardest to easiest to operate?
I think, because we've had a small bar as well.
Yeah.
So we tried that, and we exited that market segment with our tail between our legs.
It's a hard one if you can't scale it. I mean, and if you, it's a brutal one, and your service has to be on. It's similar to a restaurant, isn't it?
It's very similar to a restaurant. And again, you can't scale it, and you can't run it under management because, you know, the turnover's not there. You only get 120 people in there. So, you know, you really have to be that owner-operator person that's spending 16 hours a day there to actually make it work. If I was to have my time again, I reckon I could. I'd only open it on Friday and Saturday, and that's it. That would help. But yeah, I think restaurants are probably very hard. Like the hardest.
Yep.
Because you don't really have, the margins are very slim, and people are very picky when it comes to food. You know, so that's probably the hardest. Then I'd say small bar. At least you got beer.
Yep.
Right? At least you got some beer and some wine you can sell.
People are just relaxing themselves a little bit more. So there's less worry about the Google reviews, and you don't need the 8 touch points. Order their drink versus, you know, angry if they don't get seen by the waiter in 30 seconds.
Yeah, the Google reviews can be brutal. I still look at Google reviews and I'm like, it just upsets me. You know?
Yeah, it is tough. Especially some of them are just like nonsensical, but it's brutal because in this world, you know, there's someone's opinion is valid, and then if there's enough of those, opinions, it can really affect your business.
Yeah, just an interesting side fact: the most trusted Google review is 4.5.
Right.
So you should never be looking for 5. Because if it's 5, you either haven't got enough reviews, or people go, someone's gamed the
there's
system.
mates that are just keep.
So somewhere between 4.2 and 4.5 is where you want to be, and that's how I sleep at night. Because I'm always a perfectionist.
I think I've never looked at the stats, but that makes sense. Whenever I'm seeing above 4.1, I'm thinking, yep, cool. I don't have to go through
You're
the reviews.
You're not going to get salmonella, right? On 4.1.
I think I still have got that from some of it. Not at any of your venues, of course. Okay, and then would nightclub be the next one? Would be the second last one, and then pub the easiest to operate?
I'd say nightclubs, and then pubs.
Because if you lose nightclub, you have to be busy on a Friday, Saturday, and if your Friday's weak, then it's hurting your business. Where you can have a weakish night in pub.
Yeah, well, pubs are always they're very consistent. So you've always got a reasonable amount. They don't fluctuate as much as a nightclub. When a nightclub is making money, there is no better business in the world. But when it's not making money, and they are very cyclical.
Yeah.
They're very cyclical. One year you're hot property.
Yeah.
Next year, someone's decided you're no longer hot property, and everybody goes somewhere
and everyone's
else.
moving elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I guess the beautiful thing about nightclubs is, you know, you can turn your venue over 4 or 5 times in a night, whereas you just can't do that as a pub, and you can't do that as a restaurant. It's and everyone's happy being a vertical drinker, and their space is restricted, and you're okay to wait 5 minutes to try to get around someone and then order your, and you finally got to the front of the bar, so you'll have your 2 shots and your drink. Whereas anywhere else, if you had to wait 5 minutes to even get served, you're
1 star.
Yeah, exactly. But you're never getting 1 stars at a nightclub, are you?
Oh, you're always getting 1 star, but no one pays attention to Google reviews on nightclubs because only the people give you a review are the ones that got kicked out.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, so you've then you've opened up Lookout, and the cops, they're not coming for me or you, are they?
It's probably from the nightclub on Saturday night. Want to arrest the licensee.
So you've done well, rebranded it to the Lookout, which was its old name from 30 years ago, which I like. It's a smart idea. And then what was the next business after that you did?
And then of course Breakwater.
Yep.
Again, we've got one pub venue. What if this one goes wrong? Let's get another one.
That's the closest in size and the closest in. Actually, the Saint might be similar, but they're different. They're different sort of vibes.
Yeah, and that one was again. I think it was under receivership or under distress. That was another turnaround for us. So yeah, that was basically the principle behind that. We've got one, so let's try the other. And then we just put bowling lanes in it as well.
Yeah.
Just to
you have at the break.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to, invite my wife's
Breakwater
kids,
bowl.
and off we go. You've hooked me.
But that's the perfect venue, like you mentioned before with the Lookout. You've got kids in the morning, then you got dads in the afternoon, you got wife and family in the evening, and then you got younger kids at night. We've got it sounds like an ad, but we've got Akoya, one of our rooms that you can book, and we've had weddings in there, so it's almost like it's like a family pub.
Yeah.
Like the whole family goes there, and then the kids get old enough, they get married there.
Yeah.
Then they have, like, we've had wakes there, so the whole family, like, it's,
you can do everything. Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, as a Scarborough local, I can attest to it. I've seen it as it changes throughout the day. Not quite kid friendly at 10 p.m. at night. As a single person, it's a great place to be though. Yeah. I'm not single anymore though. I love you, Harriet, my wife, by the way. So then Breakwater, great pickup, great location. I mean, what a cracker business that was to buy. And then what did you move to then after that?
And then it was Flight Club.
Yeah,
I think. I'm probably missing one, but
yeah,
then Flight Club.
Oh yeah, you opened Edison as well. Edison was probably before that one.
Yeah, Edison that used to be our old
office. Or
and I was sitting there thinking, we could probably
do something. Yeah, we're
so,
paying rent on it. Got to do something.
Paying rent on it.
Yeah,
and it was good rent. Like, it's retail rent. So if I'm going to pay office rent, it's going to be like really dodgy and really cheap. And can't be turned into a bar, because I will turn into a bar if we can do it.
And then Flight Club, and then you opened the Flight Club in Freo, which we haven't spoken about.
Yes, somewhere in that mix, we bought Newport.
Yep.
And that, again, it was in distress. It was a cheap pickup, and we thought we could do something with it. And we were sort of bashing the live music can for a while there, but again, it was really a Friday, Saturday night kind of thing, and something needed to change.
Yeah.
And people would tell you, you just need to refit it and put nicer steaks on and make your drinks nicer, and those kind of things just aren't enough. There's so many
people that normally give you that advice are people that haven't done it before, aren't they?
Yeah, basically. And also, there's a lot of really good pubs, restaurants and bars in Freo already. So, I mean, what are you adding to the mix?
Yeah.
And
how can you be unique and stand out?
That was the question. It's like, if we closed tomorrow, who would miss us? And the answer was, well, not many people. So then, we're doing the Flight Club thing. So we said, okay, well, we'll put a Flight Club down there, because it's a beautiful building. It was built circa 1890, so we could lean on all the heritage elements of the building, which we really like to do. So we don't like to completely just refit and destroy a building. And again, it's doing really well. It's turning over 3 times what a Newport used to do. And
love it. Well, you got me from Scarborough to go all the way to Freo, because some friends invited me to there, but if they had invited me to the Newport Hotel, I probably wouldn't have gone. So there's probably a story in that in itself.
Yes. Yeah, so that one there. And
Love it. Okay, and then obviously we're into going to Sydney, Melbourne. So when does Melbourne open?
21st of November, but don't hold me to that.
Yep.
So yeah, Melbourne. Then obviously we did Sydney. That's been open for 8 weeks. It's been trading really well.
Melbourne's really concentrated, and as long as you're around the Yarra and that entertainment precinct, I think you're going to kill it. I hope that's around that area Sydney one.
It's 20 k's from the city.
Too far. It's not going to work. The Sydney market is. It's really it's a lot more spread out than Melbourne, though, isn't it?
Yeah, Sydney trades in pockets. So we're at the Rocks in Sydney, but another site we've identified, for example, is in Barangaroo.
Yep.
Now you can walk from Rocks to Barangaroo in about 15 minutes,
yep.
but no one ever does. One trades in that pocket,
yep.
One trades in that pocket. Then you got another Bondi Junction's another one we're looking at. So yeah, it's an interesting city, but yeah, Melbourne, because it's such a grid.
Yep.
Right, you want to be CBD Melbourne.
Yep. I think if you're going to go a second one in Sydney, I think that'll kill it as well, because the population growth that's going there.
We have got a second one in Sydney coming up.
Very good,
yes.
Very good. Okay. I wish I invested with you when you first were bringing the Fly Club over.
Well, you still can.
We'll take this one
offline
offline
as well. We've got no money right now. We've spent it all on opening these things.
The fit out does look expensive. It looks fantastic, but expensive.
Yeah, it's eye-watering.
Was that part of the deal when you went over there for 5 days, that if you were going to take the brand over, you had to commit to a certain level of fit out?
Yeah, and like I said, we'd reversed engineered it out, and we already had our own brand, so we weren't going over there buying essentially a brand and dumbing it down.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring something world class to Australia. It sounds a bit pretentious, but we didn't want to go in half-hearted. We wanted to make something that really was remarkable.
Yeah.
And so we didn't spare any expense.
You can feel it when you walk in, immediately, and I guess just the same experience that you had when you walked in and went,
Absolutely.
you're blown away when it's something completely different to what you're used to.
Yeah.
So you did tell me that the interview would be for as long as our beers were still going. So we're getting pretty close, viewers and listeners.
I've been slowing down.
So. What would any advice you give to? There's a lot of like younger, it's like an 18 to 35-year-old demographic that listen to this podcast. And hello, listeners and viewers that are above 35. So sorry, I've left you out of that one. But what advice would you give those listeners if they wanted to get into hospitality and eventually be able to own a bar or own any venue, really?
What advice I'd give? I'd have a good, hard think about what you actually want to do in your life, because it's something you need to be passionate about. Like if you're passionate about something, you won't work a day in your life. I didn't want to say that because it's such a platitude, but
yep.
I don't feel like I don't get up in the morning going, I've got to go to work today.
Yeah.
Right. I get up in the morning and go, I've got to go to work today, but I've got so much to do.
Yeah.
And
you enjoy those challenges of building something and growing something.
If you're into challenges, then hospitality is great. If you're into using your imagination, then hospitality is great. You're into people. You've got to really be people focused. Doesn't mean you have to love everybody, but you've got to be, customer focused, but also the people, your team. Hospitality can't be run on a instruction manual and a cookbook. Culture is your DOS, your operating system. So you've got to get people to start to believe in what you kind of believe and treat your customers the way that you want them to be treated, but also enjoy it. So, hospitality is very interesting, hospitality, because like in sales, you can have lots of metrics and KPIs and, you sold X amount of phones today and you're good and you're bad. It's very hard to engineer every situation that a bartender or someone who's working in your venue is going to come up against.
Yeah.
So what framework do you want them to operate on? And that framework is culture.
Yeah.
So you've got to really, love what you do. And if you do, money's not a problem getting into hospitality. Hospitality is low barriers to entry. There's always bars closing down that the landlord just wants to, someone to come in and pay the rent. But you've got to have ideas, you've got to be creative, you've got to be inspired, you've got to be prepared to work hard, you've got to love people, you've got to love your customers. And if you could do all that, then you're going to be great. And you can't give up, because at the first time you will fail 1,000 times. You only need to win 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But they're big ones.
And then double
Big
down
ones.
on it. Double down.
Then buy another nightclub. Then buy another pub.
Well, for your, 12 or so venues, we'll call it. I'm probably getting that slightly wrong, but how many venues have you been offered versus the ones you've actually purchased and pulled the trigger on?
Well, that's a very good question, because when you're young, try not to say no. But when you get a little bit wiser, it's the art of saying no.
Yeah.
You don't want to be solving other people's problems, right? So, there might be your mate and Shafto, one person after the next person after the next person after the next person.
If they're all failing, there's probably a reason behind it.
They're all failing, there's a reason for it. But that's not to say that you can't be successful in that, because
as long as you're bringing something unique and the numbers make sense.
Yeah, but you've got to look for that thing that, is really unique. And I don't mean gimmicks. I don't mean, I'm the best bartender in the world, my cocktails are the best, right? The difference between an average cocktail and a beautiful cocktail is like 3%.
Yeah.
The rest of the industry is so good at what they do that all those standards, there's no point of differentiation in quality. So quality is not a differentiator. So you've got to look for what that thing is, what that real differentiator is going to be. Service is not a differentiator. People expect the standard of service. If you don't deliver, 1 star.
Yeah.
Right? But, I've never heard someone say to me, well, occasionally they do, the services there was so great. They'll mention it, but that's not the reason they'll go back there.
It's an expected thing.
It's an expectation.
Yeah.
Right? I expect to go to a restaurant and not get salmonella. Right?
It's a good expectation.
That's a good expectation. It's not a point of difference. My restaurant doesn't give you salmonella.
And I got served within 30 seconds. So I'm not giving you 5 stars. I'm just, it's an expectation.
That's an expectation.
Yeah.
Right? So it's trying to find, that point of difference. And sometimes the point of difference might be as much as I can work harder than the person beside me.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. I'm more committed. I will accept more failure than the person next to me.
Yeah.
But
hard work and failure is part of the game, isn't it?
But it's very confusing. I remember when I was younger, just confused. What am I going to do with my life? I say all this sort of stuff right now, and it's all in retrospect.
Yeah.
It all seems so clear to me now.
In hindsight.
In hindsight.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I was doing. Right, and that's not a problem. Right, work it out as you go along.
Yeah.
Right, it feels like in business, especially in the first 8 or 10 years, that you're walking through a misty forest, and you've only got about that much vision in front of you, and you're just groping your way through.
Yeah.
And you're just meandering and trying to work out all the, So, and if you're prepared to live in that forest of uncertainty, but you're prepared to work really hard, and you believe in yourself, and you're completely unemployable like I was. I'm a really bad employee.
And prepared to do a few junkets, to do a bit of research.
I'm prepared to do a few junkets. You'll get there.
I love it, Dave. I'm looking forward to seeing, what the next 20 years holds for Perth hospitality. But
I'll be out by then, mate. I'll be on an island in the Maldives.
But it sounds like you can't retire. You get itchy feet. You
never retire. There's no such thing.
Well, looking forward. Thank you for what you've done for the Perth hospitality scene and creating so many unique venues and pushing other operators to really, rise with you. Otherwise, they'll go out of business. So I think that's a great thing for this city, and you're looking forward to seeing you take over the rest of Australia, mate.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Appreciate it.